Our first speaker today is actually a veteran of how many years, Paul?
Well, it goes back quite a while.
Well over 10 years.
Oh, well over.
Well over 10 years. You might know him, Mr. Paul Rimmer. He has stood in elections all over the country. We go to the next slide. This is Paul on the campaign trail, I believe, when he was standing for Mayor of Liverpool.
That's right, yes.
Okay. And Paul is not what they call a PayPal patriot or a keyboard warrior. This man has been in the trenches on the front line for well over a decade. Next slide. I don't know what this was about, but when was
Gay
this?
flag, the gay flag, contesting the police for flying the gay flag. That went to the House of Parliament, that.
There you go. That deserves a round of applause. Next slide. This is the only one I could find because actually I have been on trial this year with Paul Rimmer as a co-defendant. Allegedly, a few years ago, we made some speeches at a rally in central Belfast, and according to the police, these speeches constituted hate speech. And we were all arrested, we were all carted off, lock and key to Northern Ireland, we were all prosecuted, charged, and I'm happy to announce this week in Laganside Court, when we had our trial, we were both found not guilty. So our first speaker of today is a man who's been in the trenches a long time, who's been up against the state, just like a lot of us, himself. Big round of applause for Mr. Paul Rimmer.
Fantastic to be here, guys. I mean, I love being with patriots, with people who love this country. There's a unique spirit amongst patriots when we get together. There's a love, you see. We love our nation, we love our people, we love our culture. That's what that video was all about. Yeah. And that's what we're here for, to defend our nation, to preserve our inheritance. What an inheritance we've got in Britain. What a fantastic nation. And you saw some of the hero figures there, Winston Churchill, but we could go back to Horatio Nelson, you can go back to Clive of India, you can go back to the days of Oliver Cromwell and Mountjoy in Ireland, you can go back further, Richard the Lionheart, Edward I, the Hammer of the Scots. We can go back even further than that, Alfred the Great. We can go back even further than that, King Arthur. We can go back even further than that, Boadicea. Our roots are so deep in this land, and we as a people have fought for this land for thousands of years. And we cannot be the generation that lets the side down, gives it away.
Yes.
Here, here. And your attendance at this meeting today is a defiance to all the forces that are railed against us, that want to destroy this nation. We want to give this nation to our children and our grandchildren. We want to hand this inheritance on to the future. We're going to say, I say to my children and my grandchildren, this is a fantastic baton I'm passing you. Take it forward. Take Britain forward. Our story is not over yet.
Yeah.
Here, here. In fact, we're writing a new chapter in this story. We, the British people, have risen up again. 17.4 million went to the EU. We don't want nothing to do with globalism, with the bureaucrats, with the Brussels dictatorship. We want to reclaim our sovereignty because this land belongs to us. This is what it's all about. We've got to reassert that this is our land. It was built not by foreigners, but by our sweat and our blood and our tears. And we're paying tribute to our ancestors, but we're paying tribute to people who are active now. Now, I've had the pleasure over the last few months of reading Paul's book, The Battle for Britain. And what a story that is. He talks about me being in the trenches. I've been arrested 3 times. I've been in 3 court cases. Each time I've been vindicated. I've been locked up in prison cell, police stations. But that's nothing compared to what Paul's been through. I mean, you know, we talk about martyrs, people who put their neck on the line for something they believe in and something they love. Because as I'm reading Paul's book, and I'm seeing, he put himself constantly in in danger. You know, confronting the Islamists. When the Islamists were rampant in London, when ISIS were on the march big style, when even the police wouldn't confront them, Paul Golding went and confronted it face to face. For me, that's in the annals of British history. That's Churchillian. You know, in 1940, when we stood alone when the Luftwaffe was bombing cities like Coventry into the ground, Churchill stood alone, but he had an army around him. Paul created an army out of nothing, because, it's worthy of applause, everything he's done. I mean, you know, the day when he butchered Lee Rigby, a day of national shame in this country, that was really the true birth of Britain First. We are not prepared to accept this. Britain First is full of hate. I confess that. We hate evil. And on that day, there was a brutal act of evil. And anyone with a conscience, anyone who loves God and who loves truth, they were riled on that day and they were stirred. And Paul was stirred. He was stirred into action. And he said, right, I'm going to take these guys on. I'm not prepared to accept this on my streets. We can't trust the state. No. The state, which is supposed to be our guardian, who's supposed to protect us, they're our worst enemies now. And it's hard for the British people to actually absorb this, because we've been such a successful nation for so long. And the people who've run our state have run it well. They made English the language of the world. They spread our civilization across the globe. They civilized continent after continent. And they showed that we had something great to offer to the world. We didn't go around the world to humiliate the world. We went around the world to lift the world, to take people out of bondage. I mean, the reason we colonized Africa was to stop slavery, the Muslim slaves. People accuse us of racism, right? One of my friends is a Nigerian. His name is Banjo. He's a Christian pastor. I met him on the streets of Belfast. He was preaching. And I said, can I join you and preach with you? And he said, yeah. And he said to me, I have come to this country out of gratitude for what the British did in Africa, he said. He said, at the end of the 19th century, there was an Islamic jihad coming in from the Sahara, through Mali, through Niger, into Nigeria, into Ghana, and he went enslaving and slaughtering the Africans. And he said, we had little defence against them. They had modern weapons, we didn't. They had organised armies, we were fighting as tribes. He said, if the British Army had not have come into West Africa in the 1890s and stopped that jihad, we would have been exterminated. He said, you don't realise how much the people of West Africa appreciate the British. Now, do we ever hear that?
No.
All we get is the finger pointing at us saying, you're guilty, you're guilty, you're guilty. We're guilty of nothing. In the balanced book of history, we've been a fair, a decent, a civilising people. And that's why we've got to keep this spirit going. I mean, this conference is called the Rebirth of Nationalism, the Renaissance. But we're not dead. We're not dead. The flame is still alive. It might be a small flame.
Come on.
It might be a candle, but it can spark off into a fire.
What?
We can ignite this nation again, because the nation is hungry for truth. Now, has anyone seen what's happened over the past few weeks in Spain with the Vox Party? Yeah. And the Vox Party in 2016, in the Spanish general election, got 47,000 votes throughout the whole of Spain, a nation of 40 million. It was a joke vote. They were laughed at. But in 2019, this April, they got 2.5 million votes. They come alive. Their message resonated with the Spanish people. And one of the reasons for that was they flew the flag. They lifted the flag of Spain. You know, it was virtually illegal to fly the Spanish flag in Spain because of the Catalans and the Basques and stuff. It was regarded as a national embarrassment. But they took the flag up and lifted it, and it inspired the Spanish people. They said, we're standing for the integrity and sovereignty of Spain. And they got a great movement of people. They stirred people. People realised Spain was in danger, like us, through mass immigration, through multiculturalism, through empowering the regions, as we've empowered Scotland and Wales. Spain was in danger. And Vox said, it's time to rally for Spain. It's time to reawake the national spirit, which in Spain is as deep as ours, and it was born out of conflict with Islam. Now, when they got that 2.5 million votes in April, and they won 24 seats, It was an incredible breakthrough, but people were disappointed. They thought they could actually have done much better. And it was a little bit of an anticlimax, to be honest. And then in the regional elections, the European elections that followed, Vox did okay. They got, 3 MEPs, but it wasn't a breakthrough because there's a sense of urgency about what we're doing. Our nation's in danger now. We need our voice now. But Pedro Sanchez, who's the Spanish Socialist Prime Minister, he was unable to form a government, and he said, we're going to have another election. And what an opportunity that was for Vox. It was suddenly resurrected. They got a new source of energy and life. And the Catalan crisis, talked about the flame, they burst onto fire. They swept the whole of Spain. This election, they got nearly 16% of the vote. They got nearly 4 million votes. And they've won 52 seats. They're the 3rd biggest party in Spain. This is from a joke vote in the previous election, but what? Look how big and look how quick they grew from nothing. Literally, they were just a small group of people like us today. But they had a message that the Spanish people were eager to hear. I believe the British people have had enough of globalism. I believe the British people have had enough of seeing their cities occupied and taken over. I believe the British people have had enough of being humiliated and being shat on by their own government. They've had enough. And of course, we're not alone in that. This is why I'm bringing Vox into it. There's a wave sweeping the world now, a nationalist wave. I say it's coming up the beach and it's getting higher and higher. It's coming to us. We need to be organised. We need to be ready to change this nation. We've got to change it. There's an urgency here before it's too late. There's an organisation called the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm sure you've heard of that. They have said we have a 30-year plan for the demographic takeover of Britain. And it's well underway. What are we going to offer our children? Slavery? Bondage? No, we want to offer them hope. We don't want to see this nation suffocated under a medieval, pre-medieval sort of barbaric cult. We want this nation to grow and flourish. But we want to hold on to the good things of this nation. We are a Christian party, as Paul said. And that's so important that we have the right spirit in this party. It says in the Bible, Paul says, lift up the shield of faith. Faith protects you from the fiery darts of the evil one. We have many fiery darts aimed at us. Paul has had many of them personally. He's been arrested, he's been in court, he's been basically robbed of his finances many times. He's had to put his life on the line. But he survived, and he's still prospering now. Why is that? I'm reading Paul's book and think no human could go through what Paul Golding's been through and come out smiling and come out with the determination to carry on. That's the Spirit of God in you. Only the eternal Spirit can give you that. That is not in the human heart. The human heart breaks. But Paul has showed a supernatural strength in the midst of these struggles. That's the shield of faith. That's what faith does. I mean, the Vox Party, its leader, its initial founder and leader, left the party because he said it's becoming a confessional party. He said, I don't want to bring Catholic Spain back into life. But Santiago Abascal, who's the leader of the Vox Party, said, no, that's what it's about. We're in a spiritual battle here. It's not a battle of left against right anymore. It's a battle of good against evil. Yes. And we're standing on the side. Now, you talk about the rebirth of British nationalism. British nationalism has had many forms through the years. I mean, I've been involved in earlier forms. I mean, in the 1970s, I had a brief flirtation with the National Front, whose spirit was very strong in this country, but we were just there. We were behind Enoch Powell. We wanted to protect our country, protect our borders, lift up the Union flag, stop the EU putting us in the shackles and basically fleecing us dry. We were just patriots. We were patriots, and that was the first form I got involved in nationalism with. But it was a flawed form of nationalism because our country has changed. I mean, in the last 75 years, Britain has been utterly transformed demographically. And this is important. I don't think you can stand on race. I don't think race can be a rock on which you can build a political movement. Because we have a lot of mixed race people in the society now, and we must embrace them and bring them into the movement. And we're not against anyone of colour. We're not against black people. When I see these battles in Africa between Islam and the black Africans, the black Christians, I take the side of the black Christians. Because I know they have not got any evil intents. They are facing evil. They're our colleagues. Now, nationalism, ethnicity is certainly a very important component of it. But it's not the only component, and it's not really the key component. The key component is this: we are a Christian civilization. That's why we've been so prosperous. That's why we've been so successful. Because if you humble yourself before God, God will lift you up. If you lift yourself up, God will humble you. You've got to humble yourself before God before you'll be lifted up as a movement. Now, I went out for the National Front. I was involved with the British National Party, and that was an incredible experience. Paul was alongside me there. For 10 years, we really shook this nation, and we built up a mass movement, and we had over 1 million votes. But again, it was a flawed form of nationalism, because again, it was centred wholly on ethnicity. It doesn't work. It's got to be centred on our Christian culture. It's a cultural nationalism that we're promoting. That's why we can link up with Vox, we can link up with Donald Trump, we can link up with Modi in India, because we know who the enemy is. We know who's here and is working night and day to take territory in this land and to colonise us. We know who they are. You know, it's almost illegal to mention it now. We cannot speak the truth. This is one of the, one of the things that really annoys me more than anything is that we've lost the freedom to speak the truth in Britain. We've just seen that trial. This is the trial. This is coming out of the court in Belfast. It was a two-year ordeal there over making a speech. Making a speech, a simple speech, a sort of a rallying cry to British people to rise up and defend their nation. That's all it was. Everything I said in my speech was thought through, was moderate, and was truthful. And yet, the police raided our houses and dragged us off in chains into the court in Belfast and applied a lot of pressure on us. This is what they're doing all the time, putting pressure on us. And as I say, we need something supernatural to overcome that. But we need also the support of each other. It's great to see brothers and sisters here today who are willing to stand up for Britain and stand up for our nation. But before I finish, I just want to have a sort of mention a friend of mine. His name is Andy Parker. I went to a college in Cambridge University, Churchill College, and Andy was in that college. He was a natural scientist. He had glasses and a square jaw. He is now the Director General, and Paul will love this, the Director General of MI5. Andy Parker. I remember him well in the bar, staggering around drunk.
Tell him to leave me alone.
And that's my plea to Andy, is look, it says in his job description, I will not take any political biases. I will be neutral in all political affairs. Stop picking on Paul Golding. Stop picking on the patriotic movement. Stop picking on British nationalism. There is nothing wrong with patriotism, and it should not be criminalised. It should be celebrated.
Yes.
I had another friend at Cambridge. We were in a boxing team together. He was the heavyweight. I was the middleweight. But I never used to pick on him because, he was a bit easy to hit. So, but Bobby went off and he joined the special branch in London. And he was involved with the anti-terrorist angle of the special branch, SO15. I don't know where he is on the hierarchy because they don't tell you publicly who runs SO15. But I'm thinking to myself, these people who I knew and used to drink with, these are the people now who are unleashing their forces against Paul. They just arrested him for going to Russia. Now, can someone clarify to me, is it a criminal offence to go to Russia? Is it an act of terrorism to go to Russia? I mean, this is one of the most bizarre things of globalism. They've chosen an enemy, and the enemy is Russia. And I'm thinking, well, why is Russia our enemy? We're not in conflict with Russia. We have no points of dispute with Russia. And Vladimir Putin has redeemed the Russian nation. I mean, he came to power in the year 2000, and Russia was on its knees. The authority had broken down in Russia. No one was obeying the police, no one was obeying the state. It was descending into anarchy and chaos. Maybe that's what the globalists want. That's what they seem to create whenever they have power. But Vladimir Putin saved Russia. And he resurrected the church there, the Orthodox Church. He resurrected the military and the military spirit of Russia. And he resurrected the Russian state and Russian patriotism. He's an example to us. He's not our enemy. He's our friend. The fact that Paul can go there and get right to the core of Moscow, that's something to be celebrated. That's a great accomplishment. But not in the eyes of the British state. Now we're hoping, I'll just finish on this, we're hoping that we finally do get Brexit. I mean, our patience is out on Brexit, isn't it? It's gone on and on. We know what we voted for, we know what we want. I mean, I'm hoping Boris wins this election and delivers Brexit. That's our best hope at the moment. Yeah. But I have no faith in Boris Johnson. I don't trust that guy. I don't trust him. When Sajid Javid said, are the Conservative Party going to have a campaign to root out Islamophobia? And he went, yes, yes, yes. I mean, what is Islamophobia? Someone who tells the truth about Islam? Who's critical of Islam? I mean, this guy is not going to stand up for this country. This country's in danger, imminent danger. The demographics are changing so quickly. And we need to win. We need to overcome this. And we need a party to the right of the Conservatives. And this today, guys, is the acorn that can develop into the oak tree. Because the Christian faith is not based on any ideas, it's not based on a philosophy, it's based on a man. And that man was Jesus Christ, who gave his life for our salvation. And this movement, it's got to be based on people. People who have shown the willingness to sacrifice, the willingness to endure, and the willingness to overcome. And thank God, in this country, we've got a man who's shown that. Paul Golding.
Yes. Yes.